What happens when a CEO goes undercover to stock freezers and ends up witnessing a supervisor bullying an elderly worker? Yale Keller stood in the back office of Store 15, buttoning up his Navy warehouse uniform. The name tag read Don. The beard was fake, but the glasses and dyed hair were real. He'd spent weeks preparing the disguise he couldn't risk being recognized. After all, it had been over a year since he last stepped foot in any of the 18 stores his father built from the ground up. He inherited the business 2 years ago, and while numbers were up, something didn't sit right. Customer complaints were rising at a few locations, minor stuff like missing inventory, cold service, or long waits, nothing huge, but it was the tone that got to him. Cold, dismissive. One complaint said, "This place feels heartless now." That stuck with him. Store 15 was in a working-class suburb just outside Cleveland. It wasn't the worst performing, but it had the highest employee turnover in the last 6 months. When Yale asked the district manager for insight, he got surface-level answers. Tough labor market. Kids these days don't want to work. Something about that felt lazy. So he chose this store. He walked into the loading bay, trying his best to look like a new hire, just trying to keep up. The store manager, a wiry guy in his 40s named Trevor, didn't glance twice at him during orientation. "Stick with Jason today," Trevor said, pointing toward a tall, broad-shouldered man sorting frozen meat crates. "Freezer work, you'll earn your stripes there." Jason gave a tight nod. "Let's go, Don. Hope you brought gloves." They worked side by side for an hour, organizing pallets in the sub-zero freezer. Jason didn't say much. He wasn't rude, just focused, efficient. By the second hour, Yale was shivering. He dropped a box, and Jason finally cracked a half smile. "You're not the first rookie to do that," Jason said, handing him the box again. "It gets better after a week, or your bones just go numb." Yale chuckled, but his hands were shaking. "How long you been here?" 8 years. That made Yale pause. "You like it?" Jason glanced at the door. "Used to." Before Yale could ask more, the freezer door swung open and a voice barked out, "Move your ass, Henry." It echoed through the cold room. A thin, older man, white mustache, maybe early 70s, was trying to push a dolly stacked with frozen boxes. His hands were trembling and he looked exhausted. Behind him stood Trevor, arms crossed. "You've been on that one pallet for 10 damn minutes, Trevor snapped. "Are you drunk or just slow now?" Henry muttered. "It's heavy, sir." I just need a second." Trevor walked up and slapped the dolly hard. The boxes jolted. "You get 1 second, then you're out. I'm not babysitting you through another shift." Jason stiffened beside Yale. "He does this a lot," he whispered. Yale stepped forward a bit instinctively. But he caught himself. Not yet. Henry struggled to get the dolly moving again. The wheels squeaked across the concrete. Trevor walked off without helping. Jason muttered, "Last week, Henry collapsed in the break room." They still made him finish his shift. Yale stared at the freezer door as it swung shut behind Trevor. His stomach turned. "Why does he stay?" Yale asked. Jason shrugged. "He needs the hours. He's proud, doesn't want a handout." Yale nodded slowly. "What about Trevor?" "He always like that." Jason looked Yale straight in the eye. "To Henry? Yeah, to most of us. Depends on his mood." That night, Yale helped Henry finish stocking. The old man never complained, never slowed down more than his body forced him to. During a break, Henry sat on an overturned crate, rubbing his knees. Yale handed him a hot coffee from the vending machine. "Thanks, Don," Henry said, smiling weakly. "You're a good kid." Yale swallowed hard. "You shouldn't have to take that from him." Henry gave a tired chuckle. "1 more year. Then I'll have enough saved to help my granddaughter through college. Then I'm done." Yale didn't say anything. He just sat there, watching the man warm his hands around the cup. He'd come looking for answers. He didn't expect to find them in a freezer, watching a 73-year-old man get humiliated while pushing boxes for minimum wage. Tomorrow, he'd come back again. And he'd keep working until he saw everything. No more second-hand reports. The next morning, Yale arrived early enough to see the sky still holding onto its last sliver of darkness. The loading bay lights were flickering to life. He stepped inside to find Jason already unloading a delivery truck. No one else had arrived yet. The silence was thick, broken only by the thud of boxes hitting the concrete floor. Yale rolled up his sleeves and joined in without a word. Jason gave a short nod of acknowledgement but didn't slow down. After a few minutes, he spoke. "Didn't think you'd be back. Why's that?" Yale asked, lifting a crate. "Most guys don't last 2 shifts once they see how it really runs here." Yale didn't respond. He didn't need to. The tension from yesterday hadn't left his body, it had just settled deeper. By the time the rest of the morning crew arrived, Yale had already been working 2 hours. He noticed how people filtered in quietly, heads down, avoiding eye contact. There was no banter, no energy. It wasn't exhaustion, it was something colder, a practiced quiet. Like people who had learned that talking came with risk. He followed Jason to the back aisle where the beverage pallets sat untouched. They started sorting cases onto shelves. The store had opened 20 minutes ago, but not a single customer had walked this far back yet. From the corner of his eye, Yale saw a short woman in her 20s lifting a 30-pound crate and limping slightly as she carried it. She winced when she set it down. Jason noticed too. "Hey, Lexi," he called out. "You good?" She froze, then straightened up quickly and forced a smile. "Yeah, just twisted my ankle a little yesterday. Nothing bad." Jason glanced at Yale, then back at her. "You sure you should be stocking today?" I asked to be on register, but Trevor said I'm still too slow up front. Yale kept his face blank, but his chest tightened. Jason didn't push it. Lexi moved to the next cart, dragging it with more effort than she should have needed. Yale stepped over and lifted the box she was struggling with. "Thanks," she said quietly. "You ask for help often?" he asked. She hesitated. "Not really a thing here." A radio crackled across the back room. Trevor's voice came through, sharp and impatient. "Jason, where the hell's the aisle 7 reset? It was supposed to be done last night." Jason picked up the radio from his belt. "Didn't finish it. We were short 2 closers. I had to cover dairy and help unload." "Well, it's still not done." "You want me to do your job for you?" "No, I'll take care of it." "Then move." Jason clipped the radio back to his belt and turned toward aisle 7. Yale followed. As they worked, Jason spoke without looking over. "He's been worse since the last assistant manager quit." "That was 2 weeks ago." "Why'd they leave?" Yale asked. "Trevor cut their hours without warning, said they weren't efficient enough. They'd been here 6 years. Yale felt something bitter rise in his throat. "Who's running point now?" "He is, no replacement yet." Said he doesn't trust anyone else. They finished the reset in silence. Around 10, customers began trickling in. Yale took his place organizing the shelves near the front refrigerator wall. From that position, he could see the main entrance and catch glimpses of employees rotating through the floor. That's when he noticed something else. A tall teenager with dark skin and a quiet demeanor named Malik was bagging groceries at the register. He worked fast, politely, with a slight nervousness in his posture. Every time a customer walked away, he quickly straightened the counter, almost compulsively. A middle-aged man in a company polo, Yale guessed another supervisor, walked by. "You missed a bag, genius," he muttered, tossing a small item onto the counter. Malik flinched. "Sorry, sir." "Maybe if you didn't have your headphones in all the time. Wait, you're not even wearing any. Guess that's just your attention span." Yale's hands clenched around the edge of the shelf. He stepped toward the register before stopping himself. He looked around. No one reacted. Customers ignored it. Lexi passed nearby and barely blinked. Like it was normal, the man's name tag read Elliot. Elliot leaned in toward Malik. "I'm not gonna warn you again. Next mistake, I write you up." "You're not special here." Malik nodded quickly, eyes on the floor. Yale stepped back, pretending to adjust a display. He studied Elliot for the next hour. The man barely did any actual work. He walked the floor giving orders, occasionally tapping his badge to the supply room door, then disappearing for long stretches. When he did resurface, it was always with a complaint or a threat. At lunch, Yale grabbed a sandwich from the cooler and sat at the far end of the break room. Jason joined him. A few moments later, Lexi limped in and sat across from them, unwrapping a granola bar. Jason looked at her. "You ice that ankle? No time." "I'm scheduled for register next." Yale asked. "You get breaks often," she laughed once. "Only if Trevor forgets I exist." Jason leaned in, voice low. "You see Elliot snap at Malik earlier?" Lexi's expression darkened. "He does that every day, mostly just to him." "Trevor doesn't care." Yale kept his tone measured. "Why him specifically?" Lexi hesitated, glancing toward the door. "I heard Elliot say once, kid looks like he's always about to rob the place. That was his reason for checking Malik's bags after his shift." "Every shift?" Jason didn't speak for a moment, then, "I didn't hear that, but I believe it." Yale stood up, sandwich untouched. "Be back in a bit." He walked straight to the manager's office and knocked once. No answer. He pushed the door open. Trevor sat at the desk, scrolling his phone. He didn't look up. "You need something?" "Yeah, Elliot." Trevor glanced up, frowning. "What about him?" "He's harassing a kid on the floor, using racial slurs, threatening write-ups for no reason." Trevor's eyes narrowed. "You're accusing a supervisor of discrimination." "You're a two-day stalker." "I saw it, so did customers." Trevor leaned back. "You don't know what you saw. Malik's been late. He's sloppy. Elliot's just keeping him in line." Yale didn't blink. "You didn't answer my question." Trevor stood. "I don't answer to temps." Yale reached into his pocket, pulled out a key card, and dropped it on the desk. Trevor stared at it. Yale kept his voice quiet. "That's the Master Access Badge. You know who has those?" Trevor didn't move. "I'm Yale Keller. I own this company. And I just watched you dismiss a credible report of racial harassment from an employee." Trevor's face drained of color. Yale nodded once. "You're finished here." Trevor opened his mouth, but Yale raised a hand. "Don't speak. Go clear your locker. Security will walk you out in 10 minutes. Trevor's fingers twitched like he wanted to argue, but he turned and left without another word. Yale sat down at the desk, pulled up the employee terminal, and sent out a message. "Effective immediately, Elliot is suspended pending investigation. Malik, please report to the office. A new acting supervisor will be appointed before the next shift." Jason appeared in the doorway a few minutes later, stunned. "You serious?" he asked quietly. Yale nodded. "Dead serious." "This ends now." Jason stepped inside, closed the door behind him, and lowered his voice. "There's more. You're just scratching the surface." Yale looked up. "Tell me everything." And Jason did. The district HR representative arrived late that afternoon. Yale had kept his presence low after the confrontation with Trevor, working quietly from the manager's office while Jason and Lexi took over frontline responsibilities. Malik had been brought in earlier, and Yale listened carefully as the young man described a long list of small, calculated humiliations. Being followed to the restroom, excessive bag checks, being assigned cleanup duties that others weren't, and subtle comments that always stopped just short of overt slurs. The HR rep, a measured woman in her 40s named Dana, documented every word. Yale sat across from her, no longer in uniform, his company ID visible on the desk. "I want Elliot permanently removed," Yale said once Malik left the room. "Not just suspended. I don't want someone like that representing us in any capacity going forward." Dana nodded. "Already processing it. His badge was deactivated the moment you flagged it. He won't step inside another store." Yale looked out the office window. Lexi was helping an elderly customer load groceries into a cart, still favoring her leg. Jason was handling a restock alone. "How many people are actually scheduled to work this shift?" Yale asked. Dana checked the scheduling system. "Technically 8, only 5 showed. 2 called out, and 1 was never replaced after she quit last week." Yale leaned forward. "I want you to pull this store's last 3 months of scheduling records. I want detailed attendance, call-outs, overtime, and every write-up. If there's a pattern of this kind of mismanagement, I want it documented." Dana gave a short nod. "Understood." Yale stood. "I'm going back out there. I need to see how bad things really are." He changed back into his uniform and stepped onto the floor. The energy was flat. Customers shuffled through without much interaction. The overhead music buzzed faintly, but there was no real life to it. He walked aisle 12, where the dry goods were mostly stocked, but the end-cap displays were half empty. He passed a young man trying to reach a box of cereal on the top shelf. "Need a hand?" Yale asked, grabbing it. The man nodded. "Thanks, there's never anyone around." Yale didn't reply. He just watched the customer walk away, box under his arm. In the break room, Lexi was sitting with an ice pack balanced on her ankle. She looked up as Yale entered. "They give you time off for that yet?" he asked. She shook her head. "Told me to sit 10 minutes, then get back on register." "You talked to HR?" "Not yet. Didn't think it would matter." Yale pulled up a chair. "It does now." She hesitated. "People are scared to speak up." Elliot wasn't the only one who messed with people. There's this unspoken rule: don't make noise, don't ask for help, just do your job and hope you're not next. Yale leaned forward. "That ends today, but I need your help." She gave a wary look. "Doing what?" "Helping me rebuild this place the right way." Lexi didn't answer immediately. Her eyes dropped to the floor, then back to his face. "You're serious?" "Completely," she exhaled slowly. "Then yeah, I'm in." Yale stood. "Good, I need Jason too." "Where is he?" "Back room." Rotating dairy pallets. Yale walked through the swinging doors and found Jason hauling crates onto the cold racks. He was sweating through his shirt, sleeves rolled up past his elbows. "You've been running this place without the title," Yale said. Jason looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "You're making the schedules, managing stock, training new hires. You're doing the work of an assistant manager." Jason wiped his forehead on his wrist. "Somebody had to. Trevor didn't care as long as the numbers looked good. You ever ask for the promotion?" "Once. He told me I lacked presence, said people like me don't inspire confidence." Yale narrowed his eyes. "What do you think he meant by that?" Jason grabbed another crate, paused. "I think he didn't like the way I talk or the way I look." "Well, I do. Starting next week, you're officially assistant manager, and we're hiring a store lead who actually respects people." Jason didn't respond right away. When he finally did, his voice was quieter. "Never thought someone upstairs would actually do something." Yale smiled faintly. "Neither did a lot of people, but that changes now." They spent the rest of the shift working side by side. Yale helped finish restocking dry goods, then walked the aisles checking inventory tags. He paused in aisle 9 when he spotted Henry carefully adjusting cans on a low shelf, kneeling with effort. Yale crouched beside him. "You shouldn't be on knee duty," he said. Henry looked over, smiling faintly. "Didn't want the new kid hurting his back." Yale chuckled. "That new kid owns the company." Henry blinked. "You're joking." Yale held up his ID. "Not joking." Henry sat back slowly. "And you've been stocking freezers and hauling boxes like the rest of us." "I needed to see what was really happening down here." Henry nodded slowly. "And now you've seen it." "I have." Henry's eyes turned serious. "Don't just fix the surface. The rot runs deep here. People need to believe things will actually change." "They will," Yale said, "but I won't pretend I can do it alone." Henry looked down at his hands. "You know I'm close to retiring." "I'll make you a deal," Yale said. "You help me train the next generation of floor leaders. I'll get you off heavy lifting, proper hours, benefits, and when you're ready to step away, we'll name the break room after you." Henry laughed. "That's a first. You've earned it." That night, Yale stayed after closing. He sat in the empty store, staring at the dimmed aisles and listening to the hum of the refrigeration units. Dana returned with a stack of reports. "There's something you need to see," she said, placing the papers in front of him. Yale flipped through them. Missed breaks, unpaid overtime, disciplinary write-ups with no signatures. Employee complaints marked resolved with no follow-up notes. "How long has this been happening?" he asked. "Long enough that it's baked into the culture." He leaned back in the plastic chair, exhaled. "Then I'm tearing it out at the root." Dana sat across from him. "You really going to stay in this store until it's fixed?" "Yes," he said. "And then I'll move on to the next one." Behind the counter, the automatic lights dimmed further. The store was quiet now, but Yale knew what was coming. Tomorrow would bring new hires, exit interviews, and long overdue conversations. It would be hard, it would be slow, but it would be honest. And that was a start. The sun had barely crested over the rooftops when Yale pulled into the store 15 lot. He parked in the back out of habit, even though the disguise was gone. No more fake name tags, no more cold stares through frosted freezer doors. That morning he walked in through the front entrance for the first time. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. A few customers were already browsing, but there was an odd stillness to the store. Not tense, just waiting. Dana met him by the customer service counter, tablet in hand and expression unreadable. "Staff meeting set," she said. "Break room's full. They're expecting someone from corporate, but not you." Yale nodded once. "Good." They walked the narrow hallway behind the dairy cooler. As they neared the door, he heard the low hum of voices more than he expected. He stepped inside and paused. Nearly every employee was there. Lexi sat near the vending machine, her ankle heavily wrapped. Malik leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes cautious. Jason stood in the back, unreadable. Yale closed the door behind him and walked to the center of the room. "I'm not here as a visitor," he said. "I'm here to take responsibility." The room went quiet. He continued. "For too long, this company has operated under the assumption that if numbers looked good, everything else must be fine. I was wrong to believe that. I was wrong to let people like Trevor and Elliot operate unchecked. That ends now." No one spoke. He didn't rush to fill the silence. "Effective immediately," he said. "This store has a new leadership structure. Jason is your assistant manager. A new store lead will be brought in next week, someone with a proven track record of building teams, not breaking them." He looked over at Malik. "Malik, the conduct you endured was unacceptable. You shouldn't have had to tolerate it, and you won't again." Malik gave a small nod, jaw tight. Yale turned to Lexi. "You're being moved to customer engagement until your ankle heals. You'll still get full hours. And after that, you'll train on inventory systems. You've got a sharp eye. I want to build on that." Lexi blinked, then nodded once, slowly. Then he turned to the rest. "No one in this room should have to choose between dignity and a paycheck. That's not what this company was built on. And if you stay, I need you to help me rebuild it right." A woman near the front raised her hand halfway. She looked maybe mid-50s with graying hair pulled into a tight bun. "So what happens now?" she asked. "We've heard promises before." "You get to hold me accountable," Yale said. "And I'll be here for a while. I'm not heading back to headquarters until this store runs the way it should." Jason stepped forward, arms crossed. "We're still short-staffed. That doesn't fix overnight." "I know," Yale said. "We've already raised the hourly base rate. We'll be offering guaranteed minimum hours to part-timers, and we've opened hiring immediately. But until more people come on, we'll rotate to protect everyone's limits." Dana stepped up beside him. "We've also initiated an anonymous reporting system direct to my office. No filters, no delays." The room stayed quiet. Yale looked around. "I know trust isn't rebuilt in a single meeting, but I'm asking you to give me the chance to earn it." Jason gave a single nod, then looked around the room. "Let's get to work." People began to rise slowly, murmuring to one another. Some offered polite nods. Others avoided eye contact. But they moved with a little more purpose than the day before. Yale held the door open as they filed out. Hours later, the floor began to find a new rhythm. Lexi trained a new hire on scanning protocols from a seated stool behind customer service. Jason coordinated with Dana on shift coverage, breaking down hours by priority. Malik worked the front lanes again, but this time, with a second bagger beside him and a supervisor nearby who actually stepped in to help when a line backed up. Yale spent the day quietly doing what needed doing, refacing shelves, helping customers find items, lifting boxes with the new stocker, Maria, who had just turned 19 and admitted she'd never worked a job before. "You're good at this," she said as they arranged canned beans on aisle 6. "I've had a good teacher," he replied. "Who?" "Every person in this store." That evening, when the last customer left and the doors locked behind them, Yale walked the aisles one last time before heading to the office. Henry was waiting there, seated with a clipboard in hand. "Inventory's done," he said. "We're under on paper towels, but I flagged it." Yale sat across from him. "You're not supposed to be doing inventory solo." "I wasn't." Henry gestured toward the hallway. "Malik helped, he's good with numbers." Yale leaned back. "You think he'd make a good stock lead?" Henry raised a brow. "You asking me or telling me?" "I'm asking." "Then yeah, give him 6 weeks training and the right tools and he'll run circles around half the leads I've seen." Yale nodded. "Done." Henry set the clipboard down, rubbing his shoulder. "You still planning to retire next year?" Yale asked. Henry smiled. "I was, but now I might stick around a little longer if only to see what this place looks like when it's finally run right." Yale stood, walked to the desk, and pulled out a small, folded paper from his pocket. He handed it to Henry. "What's this?" Henry asked. "Approval for reduced physical duty, full benefits, and a mentorship stipend. You'll train our next round of floor leaders. No more freezer shifts. No more dolly carts." Henry scanned it, then looked up, eyes narrowed with disbelief. "This real?" "Very." Henry chuckled, tucking the paper into his pocket. "Damn, never thought I'd see the day." Yale extended a hand. Henry shook it firmly. Outside, the parking lot was nearly empty. Jason stood by the dumpster finishing a cigarette. Yale walked over, hands in his coat pockets. "You ever think about running a store yourself?" Yale asked. Jason raised an eyebrow. "I just got this promotion, I know. But I'm planning something longer term. Leadership development program. Store 15's going to be the model." Jason took a drag, then exhaled slowly. "I'd have to think about it." "Good, that's all I'm asking." They stood in silence for a while, watching the last of the daylight disappear behind the rooftop signs. Inside, the lights were shutting off row by row. The store would open again in 12 hours. It wouldn't be perfect, not yet. But it would be honest, it would be fair. And for the first time in a long time, it would be theirs. Yale turned to leave, then paused. "You ever wonder why I came here undercover in the first place?" he asked. Jason shrugged. "You wanted the truth." Yale nodded. "I got it. And I'm not walking away from it." He walked to his car without another word, the cool air biting through his sleeves. Behind him, Store 15 stood quiet but not silent. The silence it had worn for so long, the fearful kind, the kind born from watching and not being seen, was gone. And in its place was something else, something beginning.